it's beautiful and it's like symbiotic in a way. It's powerful. It's subtle. It's and very expressive. There's a direct relationship between a certain movement of your body and sound. And I've written here. There's a couple of things. It leads to a kind of musical eloquence and expressiveness, also authority and purpose. And there are so many different axes that you use. I'm talking about axes here. You've got X, Y, and Z basically, and all these points, like the different bones and the joints, all have an X, Y, Z, a vertex, as they call it. With a violin, both hands have an X, Y, Z, world, kind of a 3D world. So one of the problems with the control of electronic music is that we don't have that. We've got a keyboard. Okay, I'm sitting behind a keyboard. I'm playing, with two hands. That's a traditional way. I've got pedals, sostenuto pedal. I've got, sustain pedal. But in electronic music, you'd like to change the sound. Okay, let's not talk about an automatic filter envelope, but something you want to do with your hand. Then you lose one hand. One hand to play, the other for a knob. And that's only one parameter. Only one parameter. Okay, I've got 2 feet. So I can have 2 pedals, maybe multi-pressure pedals. Still not that much. So at most, I think, just with the hands on a simple keyboard, you can maybe have like 4 or 5 parameters at the same time that can be controlled. Only. That's not where interesting electronic music is about. Interesting electronic music is about a constantly changing sound, a sound that is alive from the inside. And if you want to make a sound that's alive in the inside, you really need to be able to control a whole lot of elements of that sound in real time. So there have been attempts to do something about that, but it is really something that lies at the heart of, it's a problem that lies at the heart of synthesis. And so this human interfacing thing that I'm working on is as follows. I found this little gadget and I thought, why not? I started research into it and I found out that there are actually 330 data streams coming out of that. All these different points of the hands. It also does the wrist. It does the elbow even. 330 streams of data from your hands, each with a frame rate of 50 per second. That wasn't possible 10 years ago, 12 years ago. It was impossible. Like it was impossible, to have a gimbal that does all that. That beautiful kind of filming nowadays, where you're in a hole and you walk around and the camera stays perfectly balanced, and stable. So all these things that the technology has really improved, and also it's cheap because this little bugger costs not even 100 euros, 99 euros. I think it's even cheaper now. I've got a couple just because I'm performing with it quite a bit, and I'll show you a little bit of what kind of performing I do with it. Let me switch this off because it takes a lot of CPU. We can close this too. Yes. We can close Krakow as well. Oh no, it's Amsterdam. Sorry. There we go. Closed. I had it all open, so it should be here somewhere. So many windows open, just for traveling. There's the concert in Amsterdam. the sound. I think we do. It's just what I've just been doing before. It just needs a little bit more time for setting up. So I've got a max patch. Some of you have seen it already. I'll open the max patch in a minute. I've got a max patch. I've got a synthesizer that I built, which is basically a wavetable FM synthesizer and a video synthesizer. I'm actually projecting onto myself. You know, I've got a strong beamer in front of me, and that's one way of doing it. This was a later attempt because the first time I worked with this system was this here. Okay, sorry. I had to turn it off for my
This is my body anti-Wi-Fi.
yes. Well,
The Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi. Anti-Wi-Fi.
that should be right now. I should have it again.
What I would do, I would refresh it and then start again and just move the cursor
Yeah, maybe I should.
till 209. Because otherwise it won't work.
There we go. The thing is with this, it also not only addresses some issues that we have with electronics, but also composition. You might also be familiar with the endless discussion about whether writing a max patch is, or writing a super collider code is composition. And there are some, I also encounter hardline colleagues and fellow, and also students that go, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. Writing a score, you know, with pencil and paper, that's real composition. But in fact, this is a very different way of writing compositions. You're writing tendencies, you're writing possibilities, you're writing a framework, a very detailed framework. And so every time, of course, if I perform this piece, every time it will be different, slightly different. However, the switches are all in place, and you might have noticed the envelope. So I will go for a switch, and then you have this ramp going up for certain parameters. And so with the lead motion, it's kind of a balance between things that are instant and easily understandable for your audience, like if I'm doing, you know, and it turns into this bit crusher. Of course, when I do that 2 or 3 times, people know, we need that's the sound that's going to come. Other things, like slow movements, they don't need that. So the triggers, the envelopes, the triggers that I use for the envelopes, and the envelopes themselves, they can be much more less, I would say that, they can be less specific, and they can still give meaning to an audience. This is my way of dealing with the limitations of traditional controllers. I've got lots of MIDI controllers at home. Of course, I've got a keyboard, I've got a Behringer motorized fader thing, I've got a Arturio Lab, and they all have keyboards, and I've got knobs, I've got Fader Fox. I saw someone playing with Fader Fox last night. I thought, that's nice, because they're very, very cool MIDI controllers. However, there's still knobs in a row, in an array, and you know, there's also very often a problem with the connection between what a controller looks like and the equivalent of the plugin that you have on your screen. You know, they're completely different things. You know, these beautiful synthesizer user interfaces today, like from you know, ranging from Massive, Native Instruments, Massive, Serum, Zebra 2, all these beautiful synthesizers that sound great, but no one has, well, only 1 or 2 companies have done that. For one specific software synthesizer, they've made a hardware controller, so it looks the same. You've got the controller here, and you've got the plug-in there, and they look the same, which is, you know, for the physicality of things, for turning knobs, is very important. Having said that, of course, what I would like to see is some future development, and that is this. Let's see if I can start that right out from the beginning. Ultraleap is a company that now produces the following. I should not talk about it too much. You have a look for yourself and you understand what I mean.
We're here with Ultra Haptics. Charlie is here to talk to us about what haptic technology is. Charlie, what is haptics and what is Ultra Haptics?
So haptics is the sense of touch. What we do at Ultra Haptics is we use ultrasound to create the sense of touch in midair.
There's an array of ultrasonic transducers, and what you guys did was write software to control all of those transducers.
Each of these transducers here is controlled individually by the algorithms that we developed, and we use a leap motion camera that allows you to focus, say, a tap or a click on a specific point on your hand, like on your fingertip. We can create a button in space that you can tap to turn on, for example, a light. As you get through more advanced types of haptics, you might see this, for example, in the digital signage domain. In the automotive world, you can see how you might control your stereo by moving a slider in midair, and then all the way through to advanced gaming and virtual reality. So the Touch Kit is our first generation.
Etc., etc. Go into all this commercial speak, but the future has arrived. So what I have now here is a situation where I don't feel, the space itself is my feedback. This inverted pyramid, I should call it. And what I've done for that piece, that sculpting hands, and the other pieces that I've written, is I created different quadrants inside that space, so I can go from here to another quadrant and then change the sound. I can also jump from one quadrant to another. And the great thing is about that kind of idea of this audio space is that you can learn it, you can get to know it, you can, you can, like a violin or any other instruments, with practice you get to learn it. And of course the difference is that you can completely redesign it yourself if you're not happy with the sound world any longer. Because the sound space doesn't do anything else but spit out MIDI or OSC to your synths, your video synths or your audio synths. It's nothing else. It's just that. Now, for the first time, it becomes possible to actually feel it. So that if I touch a switch, now I have to just guess where it is. But with this system, you can actually feel it in space. Because of these little, don't know if you got that from what they were explaining, but I have this array of transducers, and they focus on a very specific point on your skin, and your skin will be slightly moved so you feel it. So this is done with audio as well. And with that system that they use, they also use the leap motion as the camera. So that picks up all the data in space. Just to show you what the next step for me was. Still haven't got this because it's very expensive. One of these arrays, like, they start at €7,500, which is really expensive. I can't afford that. So I'm now, the only thing I think I can get into that is if I ask them to sponsor me, which is not really something I would like to do, but I probably have all kinds of obligations if I do that, but then I've been working with this leap motion in this space. This is in Amsterdam, a place called Orgelpark. Jacob Lekkerkerker. He's the city organist in Amsterdam, which is a very, a great position to have. You are, a direct colleague of Sveling. So he's the actually also the organ player of the oldest church in Amsterdam. And I just realized that Mark used to study organ. Didn't you? Yes.
There are some students also.
Okay, great.
Yes,
great.
I am
Oh, then
organist.
you might really want to know about this place, because so there are 4 big pipe organs in the round.
Quadraphonic.
Yeah, you could. And in fact, there are some smaller ones down below, like a little American theater organ.
3 too many.
There is a Renaissance organ. There is it's full, and those. It's a very big space, and there are 2 very significant, 3 very significant.
Monsieur, at this page there is this position of these organs.
Well, this is the ground floor, so it's an open, like a U-shaped space where this organ, sour organ, romantic organ, is right at the back. This one is on the right, and I'm only going to talk about these 2 organs because they are MIDI-fied.
It's
Yeah.
controlled by MIDI.
They can be controlled by MIDI, but not only that, they are OSC-fied. So they have, the resolution is much higher than MIDI.
Organist
What is the access?
are needed.
Yes, I know, I understand. Everybody wants it. And what you saw Jacob do is play on a console.
Oh, I would like to program organ in my church and play back for to play at mass and to be, for example, at lessons at academy.
Yes, of course, I understand.
You mean to play on remote, yes?
Yeah, let me explain.
Oh,
Let
remote,
me
very
explain
good.
something.
From
Okay.
my laptop.
Yeah, you're very optimistic there, because
Lying
there are only
in your
4 or 5
bed.
places in the world where this can be done. And Amsterdam is one of them. There's Malmö, and there are 2 organs in Germany. And there's the company that writes the software for these organs is also in Germany. Both the Sauer and the Utopa, as you can see, is a Baroque organ, right? And those 2 organs are completely OSC. So you can send anything, you can control anything with it. It's done by little magnets on the tubes, and in total we're talking, let me count, 7,500 pipes. And being in this space, working on that big console that you saw with the 3 manuals and the pedals, touch screen, all the stops, you can layer different registrations, and of course when I knew this new organ was there since last year, Utopa. It costs 1.8 million euros.
Oh.
And then I'm not even talking about the expense of overseeing the Sauer organ. And this is all private money. A private benefactor who has lots of money and is really into organs.
Excuse me, if organ is controlled by MIDI,
Or
regis-
OSC, because that's very important.
Yeah,
The
OSC.
current format is OSC.
was
It includes MIDI inside.
Yeah, it is.
Just to
It has,
put
the
those
resolution
things
is
in,
higher because
Most of the applications are using
and registers
OSC. Open
can
sound control. That's
and
good.
registers can be switch on and switch off by control change or
Yes, yes.
Yes.
or
Let me
the
explain to you.
register-
I'll explain everything.
Plus many others. That's why.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I was testing this, and this is the first thing I came up with. motion and OSC controlled organs. It's an unlikely combination, but it's also very powerful. And if you're in the space, you know, you can feel the wind blowing around your bones. It can be very loud. I can do the most amazing things with stacking sounds. And it finally ended up in a whole piece that I've written. And this is the first version of it. And I'll show you the whole piece because I think it's quite unique. It hasn't been done before. This is during the annual Uitmarkt. It's called. It's basically where composers and halls, ensembles, concert venues are showing the stuff for the coming season. And so they invited me to play a piece that should be finished on the 1st of February. So I had to finish it off like 3 months earlier to be able to do this promotion. Welcome to the neoliberal world. Okay, here we go. lot of people are involved there. You saw me losing contact 2 or 3 times, and that has to do with the fact that this was recorded during the daytime, and there was the sunlight coming into the space, and sunlight is, infrared, so immediately I've got a problem with my hands, so I'd rather perform at nighttime. Okay, so it's basically creating something from nothing, because the leap motion is just, air being controlled. The air controlled in the organs is, of course, physical air that needs to be controlled. And the only thing that I had when I came in was already some kind of modules that I've written for the leap motion, and then the OSC and MIDI facilities of the organs. And the sky's the limit. And what you hear here is the first version of this piece, and already there is like kind of spectral elements in there. Eh? You can really create these spectral soundscapes. In Malmö, where they have an organ with one organ only, but it has double the amount of pipes, they also have a harmonics section. That is to say that certain, I think the Hauptwerk, so some parts of the organ is traditionally divided in different werken, and the Hauptwerk, I think, has a whole, I'm going there next year, a whole harmonic section, so that each pipe has a harmonic series you can control. Imagine that. It's, absolutely fantastic. This is only the beginning of a trajectory, and I'm also constantly writing feedback to the developers of the software, because what you don't see here is that I spent basically 5 weeks in the dungeons of this church to be able to do this, because it was such an enormous amount of work. It's never been done before. And so I spent like weeks and weeks hidden in this building. I just came out for food and sleep, and that was all. And I had about 10 crashes every day. It was truly horrendous. But, I think that's also an interesting point, because you've got this fast digital world of the leap motion, sending all this data to this, basically analog construction of these two organs. And if you have, you've got, I don't know if you guys know what a Zetzer is. A Zetzer is a system where you have kind of presets for an organ, hardware presets. So you've got certain registration, you've got certain stops open, and instead of having to go and pull the
Each
next one.
registration can be saved at pen drive.
Yes, exactly. So you push a button or you pull one stop and all the others will change. Now, if you do that via OSC with this organ, which is possible, and you do that too fast, the whole system goes, the organ says, no, not today, I'm stopping. And so you've got a crash, and it happens so often to me. Terrible. Question is what to do next. I think the organ, it needs to be, of course, the crashes need to be solved, and I need to get my hands on one of those arrays of stuff. But I also think at the moment I can do without. I've got the space as my non-haptic feedback. Has anyone got any questions about this? Because I can imagine, especially organ players. Go ahead, fire.
Well, this is the matter of space, the first item, because the organ usually should be located in a very special space.
Yeah.
Historically, it's the church space. Yes, larger, better, but also with some limits. And I think that's when we have several instruments, which we have in all churches, like a back organ and a
And front
side
organ,
organ,
yep.
and sometimes even hanging above, which is I think in Brussels the case on the left. I don't remember the name of the, but then we are getting this I think a very special, not conflict, but always the consideration about the space, the sound moving in a space. So that's another concern which we can control or not control, because in this case we are using it as it is, because this is natural space arrangement.
No.
Yes.
We can't change
So,
that.
yeah.
Must say also that we already discussed this today, but I'll explain it to you guys. One of the pieces tomorrow in the Electric Voice is an octaphonic piece.
One.
Only one of the 8 pieces, and the concert next week in Amsterdam will be in this space.
Oh. The same concert.
The same
program.
concert as we are going to see tomorrow is going to be in this space in Amsterdam next week. Because I've got, you understand, now I've got a special relationship with this space.
Yeah, we talk more about the Amsterdam concert than about the
Yes,
concert
of course.
tomorrow.
Because in Amsterdam, yeah, but I did, when you were out, I explained quite a bit about the concert, the Electric Voice, but next week we decided with the tech, we decided to not bring in 8 loudspeakers, because it's not going to be helpful in that space. It's going to be a swimming pool. You know, it's and there are no sweet spots in a place like that. You know, the amount of early reflections is such that you will not have sweet spots. So we decided we can make something out of that ourselves, because it's you know, and do as we feel is good for the whole and for the audience there. Of course, yesterday evening when there was already a multi-channel sound up, where I was sitting, I only heard one loudspeaker properly, and the other ones were just, you know, they were kind of ambient. Worked fine for me. I mean, I did have a great time last night, and I really enjoyed the laptops, for example, and also the channel player. I really enjoyed it, but from a perspective of
We are moving speakers every day.
yeah, okay, I'm gonna
Not
make
right
sense.
in the corner with the bar inside, but when we need really to control a space, that's the only space
Yeah.
under control.
I don't know if,
Otherwise-
have you guys ever heard of wave field synthesis?
Yes, very much.
Because, you know, of
We
course-
used the hanging speakers in this
Okay.
hall last year.
Okay. And there's
Like
another
14 speakers, you know,
14.
like a spheric
Okay.
dome, like.
Also, the first time I went to New Zealand for a conference and teaching, I ended up, this was in 1990 or so, 91, and I ended up in this fantastic big space, and all the students of Wellington School of Music, that's Victoria University, they had set up in the hall a system for all this classic New Zealand electroacoustic music pieces. And they used something that was called stereo dispersion, which is something nobody had, in Western Europe, nobody had heard about it. Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 people at Bourges, but stereo dispersion was not around. And what it was simple, a system of left front 1, left front right front 1, right front 2, and 2 identical loudspeakers behind the middle ones pointing at the wall in the back. And what you get is this beautiful 3D experience. Even if you have classic mono electronic pieces from the 1950s, if you play it back through that system with a bit of EQing, you got a fantastic 3D experience. So that's something to keep in mind. If you don't need a very expensive system to do that. You can do it with cheaper loudspeakers than this. If you have like tannoy reveals or something active, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of them, okay, a subwoofer might be nice, but if you've got 6 of them, you've got a fantastic system. You know, you can easily control a space like we were yesterday. Anyway, so space in this case is very. However, the displacement of air while I'm playing these organs is just, you know, it's enormous. You know, and you can feel everything is like trembling. And I remember that the only other experience that I really had that was listening to Volumina by Ligeti in Hamburg on a festival in 1992 or so, and they played in Hamburg. And there's this old church that survived some bombing, old cathedral, and they were playing that Volumina, and the whole place was shaking. Everything, you know, the seats, these beautiful medieval seats we were on, were like, oh, that's something that came back when I worked in this space. Questions? If you have questions about Leap, I'm happy also to, or about tomorrow or anything else. Pick my brain.
Yes, because in fact the rehearsal with Nicolas is going on already. The down gallery at Heaven. Tomorrow the whole day long is the rehearsal and setup in the mini hall on the first floor. So it's also especially for students, for volunteers, it's really great opportunity also to sit there and to be in a silent place. I have a class 2:30 also from intermedia coming. I think that you didn't get the message from, or you did, because that's the problem with our office, you know.
Oh, you just heard that. You just heard that you're actually going to teach straight after this class.
Intermedia in Fine Arts Academy.
Okay.
So there's another group of students, another location.
Okay.
But this is like a regular story. So if the question comes later, you can join us there. That's what I mean.
Okay.
And of course, please join the concert. And we start at 9, which is a very special case because we have 2 other concerts earlier here at the Academy, also in different spaces. So that's why logistically we are limited. So that's why I moved the concert of Nicolas from 8 to 9.
No, right. Okay.
Then we have an obstacle, like a volume level in Havre at 10 o'clock. So that's why the program was also divided for 2 parts. More silent pieces. I don't know whether you know, but we talk about.
Yes, I've heard
I
that.
think Alexandra made this
Yeah.
decision about splitting the program for more loud and less loud.
Yeah.
But in general, we are familiar with the police, you know, coming to Havre. So
Yeah.
that's
I
another
think
story.
also this is not a band. You know, I play in bands. Bands are loud. Drums are loud.
Yeah.
Even without amplification. I'm a bass player myself. I have to bring a bass amp next to a drummer, like a funk drummer. It has to be like 400 watts before I can actually relax. Yeah, it's loud. And so these are all only peaks, which was interesting because you were giving us these earplugs last night. And
Just as an invitation for the next part of the festival, you know, to be protected. Because
Yeah,
I'm
good,
always
yeah.
doing this, reminding people that they should have this clear mind that
Yeah.
it's very individual, very personal.
Oh, absolutely. But it still makes sense. I don't know how you guys are, but I'm now close to 60, and I do have a huge gap in my hearing.
The same with me.
You know, it's yeah.
But if I can interrupt you, there was a special kind of research in Havre going on several months because of the problem with the neighbors. So I suggested them to solve in different ways. One, to keep on the screen 5 minutes to 10 the picture counting down, that we are coming down with the level. So everybody knows that at 10 it should be softer. That's one point. Another one is we know how certain frequencies are distributing over the walls. So if you limit a little bit low frequency, that's one point, then you are more safe because this is the main
That's the main
shake,
bulk.
you know.
Yes, that's right.
And then there are certain, like we have the earphone concerts, for example, you know, so like a silent disco project. So Josef Klammer with Seppo Grindler, they play the concert of 100 headphones. So this is in ambisonic.
Yeah, and Bluetooth, I guess.
No, they're wired.
Wired.
They came with 2 suitcases, specially designed for
Huge preamp.
And then I don't know whether I should say, I will not spell the name of my friend, he was struggling with the neighbor. Every time he was running louder stuff in his apartment, the neighbor from the lower was putting the
Oh yeah. Room.
shaking, shut up,
Classic.
slow down. And they live in a quite noisy environment. So once I recorded the environment, and I started to play this environment from his apartment, moving up the noise around on the level from one room, and then we played from another room, and he didn't listen. He got higher level of the environment. So that was like a muting, you know, masking a little bit the sound. So that's another solution. I propose, however, to make it like an anti-phase filtering and blocking sounds and sending another sound instead of this.
I remember I was talking about the old church where Jacob is now the main organ player, and I've written pieces for the carillon in there. If any of you does that or gets an opportunity to write for carillon, do it, because it earns you quite a bit of money. Why is that? Because every time it gets played, it's played for 100,000 or 150,000 people can hear it, and you get rights for that. So that's good. But I thought, you know, what I also want to do is want to sample the church, Carillon, which was built in the 17th century by these 2 French guys, Hémony, and they made the most beautiful sounding carillons. They're very much in tune. They're absolutely stunning. So there wasn't any sample set of that. So I went up the tower, like 45 meters, and recorded every single bell with a shotgun mic. And but other than many other churches, it was not a closed carillon. You know the closed carillons? They have shutters. They have like these wooden shutters that point down, so the sound is going straight down. But this one is completely open. So I was recording it, and every time, especially the big bells, they would have a sustain of like 80 to 90 seconds. They're absolutely amazing. You know, they have the diameters about this. You know, he's standing on it. These massive 8,000 kilograms of special metal being cast for these bells. Made me think of Tarkovsky. Anyway, so I was recording them, and on the beginning it was fine because I recorded at maximum. You know, I didn't have any headroom on my recorder, and it went like gang, and you get this beautiful curve, and it can't be compared to anything else because in the process of dying out, all these beautiful swirls of overtones are reaching your ear. But that church, that old church, I don't know if you have been in Amsterdam. That church is in the place where I was born and lived for 30 years, which is the red light district. So there are all these prostitutes behind glass. There are lots of drunk English people around. You know, they're always drunk. So and so you got this. As soon as it dies out, you got the noise, the city coming up, and even with my shotgun mic. It was so bad. Even at night time, I couldn't. You know, at night time, of course, not very late because I couldn't ask the carillon to hit the bells at night time. But in the evening, you know, even in the evening, it was so noisy that in the end, I recorded everything and I had to reconstruct the partials one by one for each clock. So there are like something like 56 bells, and for each bell I had to reconstruct the whole overtone series. You can do that. There is software which you can do that, but it's a manual job. Each overtone has to be completely filtered out. So all the noise around it, basically a sonogram. In the sonogram you can see all the partials evolving. You know, you've got the initial, the transient, and then this curve. And you see all these overtones, and they have all this noise in between them. All these overtones have noise in between them that become stronger. So towards the end of the sound, you've got this basically this sonogram that consists of one color only, and so you have to filter each overtone. And but that worked in the end. It did work. Cities are noisy, aren't they? You know, we tend to forget that. I'm sleeping at an apartment at Jedlah now, which is an Airbnb, and the noise of the street is just unbelievable. Also, even during the nighttime, I fell asleep around 1:30 because the cars kept coming, and lots of people had these very, very loud stereo systems in their cars, and they go past my window. And then this morning I thought, oh, okay, so now I'll take the sleep for as long as I can. So I slept for about 5 hours. And then another layer came on top of it, and that was the builders, because they're working on Jetline. You know, the middle bit is all broken up, and you've got all these guys with pneumatic drills around. So the whole place is shaking, and it's a moment like that my friend Joel Ryan says, if you come to hate it, you're going to be a very unhappy person, so you might as well enjoy it and listen to it as a soundscape. It's a little switch. So lie down and listen to it. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, if you haven't got any questions now, I should stop, and you can always, I'm around still until Sunday, so you can ask me questions if you want.
Thank you.
Także zapraszamy Państwa. Zapraszam Państwa na jutrzejsze wykłady. So I invite you for tomorrow for the lecture. 10:30 is Michael Z. Jordan. Don't miss with Michael Jordan, the founder of Falcon again. It's another composer from Birmingham, but really a great person. So then at 12 o'clock we have the visit of Jarek Kordachuk with his project Zonia, with dancers and musicians, which will close the festival this year on Sunday night. And then today we have 4 projects at Hevre, starting from Electro-Herbs, Electro-Ziółka by Anna Zielińska from Poznań, then Seifert, so Paweł Krzaczkowski from Warsaw with his project King Media's had Dumb Ears. And then the third one is quite spectacular, quite important. We had a lecture by Alex Nowitz from Potsdam, the alternative extended voice techniques with the wireless interactive systems. He showed yesterday those globes, wireless globes, a little bit similar to globes by Michael Weissbisch, but that's more modern, based on ultrasonic stream, and that's quite spectacular what he's doing. So that's the third one, and then we start a famous electroacoustic acousmatic marathon, which will be not so long like last year. Last year we reached 5 hours with a special gift for those who stayed with us to the end. And today I counted out. It's I have it in front of me. 3 hours 40. No. 2 hours 33. So nothing. Multi-channel. So SME, the international repertoire. SME, a Polish repertoire. SME, a Krakow repertoire. This is the idea of the concept. SME/SME/SME. We'll start the top one. We start around 9 o'clock, and then we will go down a little bit with the level at 10 o'clock. So that's the plan for today. Okay. And tomorrow, as I said, we have 3 concerts. 2 concerts here. Martyna Zakrzewska plays Piotr Peszat at hall number 205, because we were not able to transport the piano to the chamber hall, so we transport us to the place when we want to take a piano, and that's at 6 o'clock. Then we shift down to chamber hall with a beautiful concert, Dźwiękowisko, sound playground. That's what we can translate into English. Dźwiękowisko is a very unique project supported by the Institute of Music and Dance. I was twice part of this, which is the mission of this is to work with the amateurs and the music students from the primary and secondary music schools. So the school from Józefińska will be involved. There's a group of students involved in this concert. So that's with the premiere work by Krzysztof Nittel. And they just started at the chamber hall, the rehearsal. So and then we come to Hebre for Electric Voice tomorrow at 9 o'clock. The concert which we are, Jan Bas is part of. We have 8 kind of premiered pieces in the way that we set them up.
Well,
Site specific in a way.
European.
Okay. So that's all.
Certainly my premiere.
So you are all welcome. And remember that all students from both classes, Academy of Music and they have an entrance free for all concerts. Just to remind you. If you are ready to eat something in Hebre, when the waiter is cashing you on the end, say password, how you are, and then you are getting 20% discount. It's only for artists, but I told you as a secret story, you know. You can show up as an audio artist, how you are. 20% discount.
W ogóle zamarło, nic nie wiem, tak, ale nie ode mnie też zależy, czekam na jakby też sygnał od siebie, głównie od razu pana Szwajgiera i...
That's the only chance for
Nie, to nie musi być, sam byłem
we are part of the no, we have everything in the main space. You are part of the release. Usually, this is like a secret store going backstage, you know, behind. So last you and then to the Art Palace, you see my work. Today I invite you
To są takie detale, które ja nie odpowiem, ale dobrze się...
every day since 11 till 8 o'clock. Station number 17. The basement.
To jest czas, ale
My installation.
z ciekawości
Which
wyślę
is part of
maila
another
do
project that's going on exactly the same
może pan
time.
Szwagier, ale
50
prędzej
to
ona.
24. This is quite beautiful. Story. We have promoted ourselves.
I to miało być już przed wakacjami załatwione, a jest listopad.
Whenever it's many things going on, we should be happy.
że wychodziła też w 2015,
One hour.
Tam nie było,
a sesja była 29.
właśnie, to nie było takiego pośpiechu, że jest jakiś
Tak,
taki...
tak, jak najbardziej. To właśnie
Było takie założenie, że jak się znajdzie to się
I'll be right back.
pije z tą publikacją.
Można czekać i czekać, prawda?
Właśnie, jak się nie będzie na wykładzie. A jutro będzie wykład o jakiejś... To zapytam, będę się mailował, że to będę coś wiedział. Tak, mam
Tak, na pewno.
telefon, numer telefonu też. Dobrze, do zobaczenia.
one monitor is missing.
Rozumiem, że ten magnetofon to jest już z takich późnych jakby bardzo zaawansowanych.
No nie, to jest typowy magnetofon z czasów analogowych, lata 70. Revoxy, Studery, Revoxy, to były te główne maszyny. My mamy kilka tych, tam jest drugi. Ten sam model, różnica tylko prędkości. Jeden ma wyższą prędkość, ale środkowo mają tą samą. 9,5, 19, 38 cm, a w calach to się troszeczkę inaczej mierzy. Używane oczywiście, no dlatego tu stoją. Myślisz, że po co?
Na
Nie,
jak inaczej
muzeum,
grać
muzeum
piosenkę?
mamy w tych gablotach i zobaczcie, że one są puste te gabloty, dlatego że część urządzeń nam się udało uruchomić i są w tej chwili chyba 5. No, jak on wróci, to możemy szybciutko wejść tam i ja mu nie zdążyłem pokazać. Tak, no zaraz wejdziemy tam. Możemy wejść tam. Ja zatrzymam webcast, słuchajcie, z góry.
Czyli można tu bety na razie zostawić, czy nie?
No nie, bo tu już